All right, guys, we're live. Happy Friday. Today is April 3rd, and you're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. As always, you can chat along with us over at our Twitter chat at hashtag CMGR Hangout, where I know you guys gather every Friday, so hey, everybody on Twitter. If you love what you're seeing today and you have an idea for a topic, head over to our website at mycmgr.com, click on there you can fill out a form, and it's really your ideas, your friends, and you that make this happen every Friday. So what do we have for you this week? Well, there's nothing greater than being in the same room as people who have been there and done that, right? This week's panel below here is they have decades of collective community experience, and they're willing and ready to share with all of us. So if this were an AMA, Ask Me Anything, which kind of is, what would you ask? So what we really ask you guys to do, we have a list of questions that we'll default to, but please, if you're watching on Twitter, go ahead and tweet in your questions over to the MyCMGR handle, and we'll try to bring them in. So with that, I'll let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Stephanie.
Hey Drew, thanks so much for having me again today. I am Stephanie, as he mentioned, at Stephanie on Twitter if you want to chat me there as well. I work at Hootsuite as a Global Ambassador Lead. It's been 3.5 years, and it's been pretty amazing to see how much Hootsuite and community in general has grown. So really excited to be here today.
Hey everyone, I'm Sherry Brody, and I lead community and user experience at Rebellion Media, as well as produce CMGR Hangout here with Brew and Dom.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hawke. I've been in community about 10 years currently at Fever. I have a cold and it's 7 in the morning on Saturday, so I can't be held responsible for the sound of my voice.
Hi, I'm Sarah Siegel, and I'm the Director of Community at Dunwello. I was previously at GrabCAD, a community for mechanical engineers, and now we're focusing at Dunwello on individual professionals getting trustworthy recommendations.
I can't remember who's next.
Yeah, you're next, Rebecca.
It's my turn. Okay. I feel like I'm on the Brady Bunch. I want to look up and I want to look over. So I'm Rebecca Newton. I'm the Chief Community and Safety Officer for Mind Candy. Whoops, am I still on mute? No. And that's based in London, and I've been in this business about 21 years officially, and I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
My name is Patrick O'Keefe. Happy to be making my once per year CMGR Hangout appearance. And I'm managing community for about 15 years, moderating for 17. I wrote the book Managing Online Forums. I blog at managingcommunities.com.
Hey everybody, I am Dom. I co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Brew and Sherry, as well as work as a community manager on many accounts for Be the Change Revolutions.
Hey, David. How are you? Uh-oh.
Nope.
We got a little audio problem. Well, David, I'll let you interrupt us as soon as you get your audio working. Did want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Nagel and Carrie Keenan, who helped with our Twitter, but special shout out to Sarah Nagel, who just got promoted to Community Outreach Manager over at Sprout. So woohoo! Great job, Sarah. Congrats. Hello, everybody. I'm Brew, Director of Awesome at Be the Change Revolutions, and then co-producer here at MyCMGR with Sherry and Dom. Really excited today to talk to all of our veterans here. Excuse me. So let's just get started. We're going to get started with question number one, just kind of get a feel for everyone, which is how and when did you get started in community? And I think this will help with kind of context for everyone, you know, as we're answering questions moving forward. So go ahead and David, why don't? Oh wait, you're having the audio problems. So how about Stephanie? Can you kind of give us a little background on how and when you started?
Yeah, so I actually started at Hootsuite, again, as I said, 3.5 years ago. sorry, as a graphic designer because that's actually my background. And then 3 months in, I realized that, you know what, I don't actually enjoy just moving pixels all day. I want to know why people use Hootsuite, what motivates them, and just go from there. So then I talked to the VP of marketing then, Dave Olson, if you're watching, say hi. And then he said, you know what about managing a community for Indonesia? And I had no idea what that means at that time, right? Because what does community really mean? And then I was just like looking online, trying to search for anyone that mentioned Hootsuite. And to my surprise, there's so many people already talking about the brand, right? That's not moderated yet. So I was like, okay, all right, let's back up. What can we do with them? And then so starting from there, and then we started having conversations and helping them host events as well. Because again, about 4 years ago, people are still super excited, super keen in meetups and tweets and sharing information online and offline. So I just facilitate that, and that's how I got started with community, really.
I'll go. My first really involvement in community management, as I see it, was when I was moderating for a community in the late 90s on a volunteer basis. And I find that a lot of people who have spent a lot of time in this space have begun that way. Sarah Huck, for example. And so in that first role, though, I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned, young me learned, that I've taken with me to this day is the person who ran that community, getting a thank you out of them was like squeezing blood from a boulder. So it was not something that they really were good at. So that's always been a lesson I took with me, and have always been, I don't know, constantly appreciating people. Beyond that, I started managing community in 2000 when I was launching a web portal that covered a lot of content. It made sense to launch a community as part of that and let people talk about those topics. And from there, I've managed a lot of other communities.
I'll jump in. Yeah, as Patrick said, I began in a similar way to him, moderating a volunteer role for a community. It was SitePoint at the time. I was a programmer, and it was a good way to get code snippets. And I loved the community aspect of it. I left to have kids about 6 years ago, and SitePoint came back and said to me, look, we need somebody to manage this place. Do you want to do it? So I did. I did that for 5 years. And I realized that that was my passion, so I took on a couple of other clients and started freelancing about 1.5 years ago. And then this year I left SitePoint, and I'm now head of community at Fever So it's been a slow progression as I've learned which aspects of the job that I love. And yeah, it's wonderful.
I can hop in.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So I got my start first through the Boston startup community and learning about the unique type of marketing that startups tend to do, which is through a lot of social referrals and word of mouth and content. And so I joined GrabCAD, which is a very content-focused community, about 3 years ago, and helped grow that space from about 100,000 members up to 2 million just recently. And then I moved to Dunwello because it was a very unique time that I could, actually help build a community from the ground up. So we're now starting from just a few members, and hopefully we'll build up from there. My main focus is definitely around content, and that's, what I learned that I really loved over time.
Okay, I'll go. So I started in the early 90s through eWorld and Prodigy and CompuServe, Pipex, ICQ, Delnet, etc. as a sort of interested party. And then in 1994, I started working for AOL and started out earlier than that, doing volunteer work for lots of different forums, etc. on AOL, and worked in the VLA, which was the Virtual Leaders Academy, and lots of different jobs at AOL. And then that's basically how I got my start. And I'd say officially in '94 I started working professionally in community.
Man, these pauses are deafening.
So, hey everybody, I'm David Dewald, currently seeking new opportunities. I got my start in 97, 98. Being early to the internet and a gamer, I decided to build a fan site for a game, and it kind of blew up huge, and it eventually turned into a job. But through the years, all of my early years were all game-based communities and working with those early communities around games and gaming. And only in 2007, I think, is when I kind of made that leap over from a hobbyist into a pro and got my first pay gig. And since then, I've moved on from gaming and now work more in the business world.
All right. Did we get everybody? Sherry, Dom, how about you guys?
I can jump in, sure. I got started in community, well, if you look at it from not even online things, I led a few orientation groups and I was a day camp counselor in summer camp. But I really got involved through the Magento world when I started being a really active user on the forums, and then moved through that to forum moderation. And then through that learned that community management was a thing, which I didn't realize, even though I'd been part of a lot of communities. And from that, I started jumping into community roles.
Yeah, I sort of similar. Like when you think about offline, I did a lot of community work with, you know, the other life of Dom, where I thought I was going to be a pastor. There was a lot of community work that I did there. But when it comes to things like actually online and moderation and building communities, for me, I feel like the uber noob on this panel, because it's only really been like a year, a crazy fun year, but I got into just tried to find an opportunity where I got to build that community and actually do that. So I did that about a year ago, and it's been a blast.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually had no idea what community management was. I think I was always involved in communities and kind of just a lot of the general aspect of it, both off and online, and getting into kind of the social media phase of things a bunch of years back. Finally, actually met Tim McDonald, who I started following him and reading his stuff, and really got really got on the whole concept of community management, really digging its concepts, and so all right. So we're just gonna jump into questions that come in from Twitter. First one's from Garrett. Garrett says, I'd be interested to know what apps and devices you guys all use to monitor and control things when you're away from your desks and not working. Is there such a thing, not working?
That's what I was going to say.
There's no such thing as not working. I think the short answer is the smartphone.
Awesome. Anybody else? So definitely smartphone, right? Tablets, laptops, way to hotspots, a way to be able to keep mobile and jump in when you need to. But what other? Do you guys use anything to monitor things while you're literally away or sleeping? Or
I think a powerful app is good moderators. So, yeah, I'm not going to tell you I work all day. I actually advocate for community managers and professionals to take time away and take time off and get away from the community once in a while, because it's very helpful. I think it helps think about things in the broader sense, but also just for your own sanity and your own psyche. So, yeah, I think just having a good support system is a good app, but that's a bad answer. That's not what the person wanted. I mean, a smartphone's a good answer, email. I do a little bit of stuff on Twitter, so I have Twitter, Facebook apps, but beyond that, for real hosted community, having a good team is crucial.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. When I'm not working, I'm typically not working.
I can jump in as somebody who has a problem not working. I love to use TweetDeck or anything that helps me know what people are saying about us, even if it's just kind of scrolling through and keeping an eye on it and not really responding. And I also really like the tool Help Scout for support. It allows you to kind of share issues with your team members, and it helps you kind of schedule stuff and stay on top of everything. So I'd say those are my two go-tos.
I think the app for me would be Netflix because when I put it down, then everything else turns silent. But to your point as well, Sarah, I'm always, I don't know why, but like in the morning or whenever I feel sad or tired or whatever, I would just go on Twitter and search for the hashtag #whodam. So that's the hashtag that we use for our ambassadors. It just constantly cheer me up. So those are my two, I guess.
Awesome. I have another one came in earlier from Shannon. Shannon just asked, what's the best way to engage a B2B community?
Don't treat it like it's business to business. Treat it like it's human to human. I mean, that's the best advice I can give you. Is, I mean, there's still people behind the business, so you're really interacting one-on-one with somebody, or maybe one-to-many in a community. So just treat it like it's any other human interaction, and be gracious, be thoughtful, be entertaining if you can.
That's that Dalai Lama mountain philosophy talk. I like that, David. It's good. One thing I say with B2B is that I think at the end of the day, for most, it's customer success, right? I mean, if our community is more successful, they stick with us longer, and they give us more money. So with businesses, that's why they're using your product in some way or another to be more successful. So I kind of guide community in that way however I can. When we launch something, when we do something, it's to make the community more successful. How is it functioning in that way? So I think it's good to color your decisions in that light. Next.
Yeah. All right, guys. Everybody watching, please send in your questions for the panel. I know you probably have some, so please, again, just send them into the hashtag, send them into our Twitter handle. But for now, we're going to jump into our pre-planned question 2, which is, what are some of the changes you've noticed in the nature of community from a technical standpoint? What have you guys seen from a technical change?
Well, I'm happy to jump in there if it's okay.
Go for it.
I guess when I started, everything was we didn't even have graphic images online when I started working on the web. So that was the first thing I noticed. that was some time ago, but it was pretty exciting. But mostly in terms of communication and moderation, in the early days we did everything with message boards and email. And then Instant Messenger came along, and that was a big deal for us because it changed how we could communicate in real time with staff members and customers and community members, etc. And they could talk with each other in real time, etc. And now we have like video conferencing like we're doing today. There was See You, See Me back in the day through Cornell University, but it would be like a few frames per minute, and it would just be, it was sort of like it was ancient and crazy, but we thought it was great. But I think having Google Hangouts and lots of collaborative tools that are because our bandwidth is so much better has been pretty amazing. And then from my perspective in moderation, it's come a very long way, because in the early days everything was, and even actually some communities still do this, but everything was sort of like an online community watch system. So everything was reactive. So you press a button and say, this happened already to me. And then if you were lucky enough to have decent tools, you could look and see what was the context, who said what to whom, who did what to whom, etc. Or what photos did they upload, what's their timestamp, all that stuff. But it was always after the fact. And so about 95% of the reports, and this is still true today, 21 years later, that we get and that we got back then were just people pressing a button just to press a button. A long time ago, I did a study with 911 in major cities in the U.S. and found that they had the same. I kept thinking this has got to be the same percentage. They have about the same percentage of bogus calls to 911 saying I didn't get my pizza and I lost my shoe. And so, when commercial software became available, it was life-changing and financially changing for all companies who had to scale, right? Because you were paying all these people to go through 95 out of every 100 reports, and 95 of them were bogus. And so now with really good software that's out there, moderation software and social media software, et cetera, it has algorithms. It brings everything into buckets, so it's much more efficient. And overnight, as soon as we started using commercially available software, I'm thinking I probably can't say which companies, but if I can, I'll be happy to. But I saved 80% in moderation costs immediately, overnight. And now, still, we're every day tweaking it. It's getting better and better, and we have 10 to 20% savings every month upon month as we tweak, and the software gets smarter and smarter. So, to me, that was pretty much a big game changer in this industry.
I think the two main things that I've noticed are the fact that community software and platforms now give the community the power to make decisions for themselves. So I think that as we start to understand the concept of community more, we start to design things that work for the community rather than making the community work in the systems that we've already got. So yeah, the empowerment issue, and also now that we know that we need to understand more about community, I think we're enabling ourselves the ability to pull out statistics and to analyze the traffic and the behavior that we're getting, so that we can continue that circle and continue to build the systems so that they work better for us. So yeah, statistics and empowerment of community, I think, are what I've noticed the most.
Yeah, I think for us as well, it was mostly, at the beginning, it's just the numbers, right? Like how many people do we have in the community? And then now it's about, okay, sure, that we have this many people, but how many of them are actually engaged? And how do we bring it to the next level is the most important question.
I honestly think it's the biggest change isn't so much a technical one as it's a knowledge one. And I'm sure all of the old school ones that are from, way back when can agree that back then when we were doing community management, we were winging it. I mean, there was no real thought process to anything. It was like, oh crap, this happened. What do we do? How do we handle this? Stuff that's real commonplace, moderation. You would come in these situations and it had never happened before. And there were no other community managers to ask. So you just had to figure out your processes on the fly. So I think it's certainly a knowledge of an understanding of human behavior. Best practices have come very far along. I think that's probably the biggest change, is that we understand communities much better today than we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, especially online communities.
I want to be clear, when I said next before, I wasn't ordering Jonathan to go to the next question. I was just saying someone else talk. When it comes to technology, I think that's where a lot of the best evolution, if you want to call it that, of community happens. So when people write about evolution of community, even forums, a lot of the time it's like they want a magic trick, like they want people to talk in a different way. People talk in threaded text ways. They do it everywhere. Facebook, even Twitter, I'm seeing it more as Twitter strengthens those tools. I'm seeing more people respond to their own tweets, not adding themselves, but just hitting the reply button, so they create this threaded conversation on Twitter. So that's happening more and more. But software-wise, I mean, it's amazing. When I started in 2000 managing communities, we literally had nothing. Like absolutely nothing. You think of these old software that's really entrenched now, like a vBulletin or a PHPBB. PHPBB 1 was just coming out. vBulletin may not have been out yet. It came out version 1 that year, I think. UBB was a thing. Ultimate Bulletin Board was on the way out. We had some chat rooms. We had like mailing lists, groups. That's about it. everything that you use today, we did not have. I hate to be talking like that old guy, get off my lawn, but whatever you use, we didn't have. So that's why when people talk about like this is a Facebook killer, this is a Twitter killer, this is a forums killer, I'm like, I'm just glad to have stuff. Like I'm just happy to have the stuff that we have, and I can say like these are good tools. Use it for this reason in particular, and don't use it if it doesn't fit that need. No one has to die.
No one has to die. I love that. I'm going to jump us into another quick question here, just as we were kind of talking about change, and we have a queue actually of questions now from Twitter. But Eddie asked, where does everyone see the Twitter community heading in the next 10 years? That's a lot. 10 is a lot. But what do you guys think? Where do you see Twitter heading?
If I knew the answer to this question, I would be a very, very rich individual. I know that.
It's going to adapt to the technology. Whatever comes up, hardware, software, it's going to adapt to it. So, who knows? Maybe we'll be wearing our goggles and look at tweets fly by, in 3D. Who knows?
It's really hard to say, too. Like, honestly, like a month ago, Meerkat was a thing, right? Everybody was talking about Meerkat, but now Meerkat died, and Periscope is a thing. So it's really hard to describe what 10 years is going to be for Twitter, for sure.
I think the interesting thing, though, is the shift that we're sort of seeing in this. Now it's not really a fight necessarily to, and this is a trend that we've been seeing, but it's not really a fight necessarily to have your create like your own platform. More than anything now, it's just figuring out which one of the big three, you might say, you're going to build your platform on. Like whose backbone are you going to use to go with that? And that's what I think is going to be really interesting, because I think that if Twitter does figure out a way to sort of house communities a little bit better than just a list, then you can see a lot more interaction with that, especially with the fact that with Periscope you can do live video and all that kind of stuff. But if there's a way to sort of integrate community more into Twitter, then I could see it just being used and being more of a one-stop shop for sure.
While we're just on the quick topic of Twitter, I'm going to fold in this question from Sarah Lang. She says, since you're all veterans, how do you feel about things changed since Twitter and Facebook going from walled gardens to entire internet? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, Twitter was always open, wasn't it? I don't recall. I mean, I got my account in 2007, so the first year it came out, but I don't remember it ever being
I think that person who asked the question is saying that that's what they represented. Like, they represented the change from walled gardens to more open. So sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean that's a good clarifying. I think that for Facebook, it certainly made them a company that they are today. Had they not opened it up and stayed with universities, I think they'd be much poorer and much smaller. It was that leap to the masses that really changed their whole company.
I can jump in. I think anytime you see a change from like an exclusive or walled community to an open one, you see a change in quality and volume. So I think that's really what you see there is people, there's more people, there's a more diverse conversation, there's a lot going on, but there's a range in quality and there's a range in variety and all that stuff.
Alexandra has actually tweeted us a few questions now, so I want to jump into one of hers. I know this is just from a little bit earlier before, and maybe some of the real good veterans that have done moderation can help here. Is when do you step in as a moderator, and when do you let your community self?
I think you step in as a moderator when the self-moderation stops working. I step in as moderator either when I see somebody getting backed into a corner or when I see my staff being treated in ways that I don't think is fair. Those would be the two times that I would step in.
Awesome.
Go ahead. I was going to say, Patrick, and you probably have had this or seen this happen, not maybe in your communities but other communities, but have you ever seen self-moderation get out of control where the moderators or the users become so aggressive that it actually is a detriment to the community?
I definitely have.
Go ahead.
You go.
No, I was going to say, I think self-moderation in and of itself unchecked is sort of a myth. I think a lot of people who have been around moderation for a long time will tell you that if you just leave the community to moderate itself, most of the time it doesn't end well because there's no specific voice, no specific, there's no, I don't know, there's just no vision there. And so everyone has a hand in moderation. The community has a hand in moderation. Moderators that are appointed have a hand in moderation. Certainly leadership has a hand in moderation. They all have to work together. But as far as the tools you give them, obviously those are very different. You know, a lot of communities might just allow members to report suspicious content. Moderators might be able to take action. An administrator or manager might oversee that and ensure that it remains consistent and fair, because everyone needs a check, everyone needs a balance. So self-moderation in and of itself needs support from the larger leadership.
Great.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have anything to add to that.
Cool. So K Pathhouse asks, when were you most disappointed as a community manager, and how did you resolve it or cope? So anyone have one of those stories? Disappointed as a community manager. Anyone ever remember?
I've been disappointed, and this ties back to the last question. The times that I'm the most disappointed are times when things do get out of control, and I've seen moderation situations turn into almost mob-type behavior when people close ranks and protect each other and lose sight of what it is that is trying to be achieved. And when that happens and the groupthink sets in, I think that situations happen that's the only times I've ever been in situations where somebody has had to have some kind of a decision reversed. And when you've got to reverse decisions that your staff make, something's broken. So those times I've found really difficult, and luckily it doesn't happen too often.
For me, it's whenever our ambassadors starting to use another tool, maybe a competitor tool as well, to just tweet, right? And then we're like, oh my gosh, you are an ambassador of Hootsuite, and we were hoping that they would use just our tool, right? But you know what? At first we were very pissed about it, and then we took a step back and think again, like, you know what? This is a good thing, because at the end of the day, that yes, they are a Hootsuite ambassador, but they are also a digital marketer, right? We want them to go out there and to test out different products. So how we actually encounter it back is approach them like, hey, we saw that you were using a different tool. Could you please give us some insight about how the other tool is better than ours? And then from that feedback, then we elevate it up again to our production team.
You know, that reminds me of a great story. So Diddy, obviously most people are familiar with Diddy, Sean Combs' Puff Daddy. So there was a studio clip of him working with Brandy, and the singer, and he made Brandy sing this same part like 40 times. And at the end of the day, he decided to use the first or second vocal she cut. And she's like, why did you do that to me? Why did you make me sing those parts? And he said, well, it's because I didn't know that was the part until you sang the whole range. So it's kind of like if you don't use all the tools, you don't understand the value of the tool you're using now. So anyway, just quickly, the point I've been disappointed. What really stresses me out the most, I think, what bothers me the most, is when a super veteran user starts turning into something that's not great for the community. So new users doing things that are crazy, no big deal. Spam obviously is nothing. But when you have someone who's made all these contributions and who is a great member of the community, and they start to, be a bad example, be a bad influence, start to be just kind of a less than savory person, I think those are the difficult situations, because you have to try to sort that out. And in some cases, you're saying goodbye to a long-time contributor.
And for everybody out there that's playing CMGR Bingo, you can check off Patrick O'Keefe mentions P. Diddy.
Thank you.
If you were betting on that one, the odds were 60 to 1. Congratulations.
My most followed Twitter account is still at BadBoyBlog. I still haven't got it from under the shadow of it, so thank you.
I can go a slightly different tack before you move on. I'm most disappointed when I've kind of pushed a program out there and it's not as successful as I thought it would be, or it's not as embraced by the community as I thought it would be. And so I'd say the best way that I've coped with it is to take it as a learning experience, really dissect what went wrong, what we could have done better, and then hopefully turning that into something that's much more productive down the road.
And I have one thing to say about this too before we move on. I think for me the I'm most disappointed when the product folks in the company change things for the community without talking to the community managers or the community team first, or even the community themselves. And that happens. I mean, I've been seeing that for 20 some odd years now with tech people or product people that just, somebody has an idea and they just go do things and they change everything. And that can be really disheartening and disappointing. And it's a constant battle in the places I've worked, but you know, a little bit better now that community's sort of the new black. So.
Great. I'm going to swing us into another question here from Tina. Thanks for the question, Tina. So she asks, how have you helped your community evolve now versus then? Somebody have a good evolution story?
Yes, I can go. Sarah, do you want to go? Oh, sorry. Okay. So evolution for, again, the ambassador program that I manage, at the beginning, it's mostly just them talking to us, right? So it's more like a one-on-one between the individual ambassador with a community manager. And over time, we asked them a survey about why did they join this community to begin with, and they love the fact that they are a part of a global community. So starting from there, then we kind of evolved the program to make it be a little bit more cohesive, right? So instead of them talking to us, now we are connecting them to each other around the globe. So now every time they have questions, they actually ask each other first before they come to us, and that has been like the most amazing thing. And I don't think it's self-moderated community because we are still in there, but we are facilitating the conversations to happen globally.
All right, how about jump into another question, this time from Juan. Juan asks, question for you guys, tips for turning online interactions into offline support and relationships. So I know we've had entire panels about this on Fridays, but anyone have like one real strong, passionate tip for Juan? Dom says in the chat here, what you guys can't see is watch last week's panel because we actually talked about that a lot. But Sherry, I know you do a lot of, or have done a lot of different like events and things like that in the past. Did you want to just help Juan here?
I would just say meet up with them, plan a meetup. Like if you want to turn online interactions offline, then make an opportunity for that to happen, and it will.
Awesome. Here's another what do you call it? Platform question. How do you create a successful community on LinkedIn? Any of you guys have experience? Oh, we got a thumbs down from Stephanie. Anyone have any success or thoughts around this?
If you're making a group, make it closed. That's all I can tell you. Really, I don't see LinkedIn as a community platform. So I can't say anything other than that. But if you're going to use a LinkedIn group, make it closed and ban people that spam up your community. That's the biggest problem with LinkedIn and their groups, is that most people leave them open. They don't moderate them.
I'm not sure I agree with the sentiment that it's not a community platform, because I think that any platform is a community platform if there is community behavior on it. I agree that it's not necessarily the best one to choose if you have options, but if you already have people there, I think you're crazy to ignore it, and I think that people already have that habit in their daily life, so you've already got their eyes. You don't have to work so hard on trying to get your voice out there, but you just have to be really careful. You do have to moderate carefully, as you say, and it doesn't have a lot of the functionality that other platforms do have, so don't be afraid to pivot if things start to build and look at moving off. But otherwise, I think that if there's an opportunity there, grab it.
My only reason for not liking Facebook, Twitter, and those kind of things is that I think you should own your data, and that way, if someone comes through and changes the platform on you, suddenly your reach is dropped to nothing. If you own the data and you're on your own platform and just use those other sites to pull people into your community, you don't run the risk through no fault of your own.
And there are multiple ways to use LinkedIn. Like groups are one way. There's also like, for example, I'll pull out SitePoint here. SitePoint has a page, a company page with followers, 2,000 plus followers right now that post articles. SitePoint owns those articles. You know, the traffic goes to their website. They convert those people to subscribers of the newsletter, members of the forums, etc. So, you know, you can use it more like I guess I would say a Facebook page versus a Facebook group. So the same thing is true there if you have a really hyper business audience.
I got a question from Christy. Christy Fedura asks, when you are disappointed, what procedures, policies, or T's and C's do you fall back on?
Well, since I talked about being disappointed, I think we just have guidelines and they apply to everyone. And I think in my case, my story was dealing with veteran members. Like the guidelines apply to everyone. Doesn't matter if you're a veteran or not. It's pretty fair and consistent. So everyone knows them, and that's what makes them fair and quote unquote transparent. So yeah, just apply them fairly and evenly to everyone. And sometimes people don't like that, but if you treat everyone fairly, you don't tend to have my story about.
Yeah, I'd say whatever you do rely on, you should just be consistent about it. I think that's the most important part.
Another question from Twitter from Eddie again. Eddie says, when your online community starts getting political, how do you handle this without disenfranchising anyone? What are your thoughts?
Don't allow political conversations. Just
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
politics, religion, and you know, women's issues tend to be very sensitive. Although women's issue kind of falls into politics and religion usually, but just flat out don't allow them. That's your safest and easiest route.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's all about, like, the stuff like that. It's all about setting precedent, and whether it is something in, you know, like the rules of, you know, your forum or of your group. Just make sure that you do take a look at that and make sure that it does say something, because, you know, you want to make sure that you have something to point back to that they essentially have agreed to when it comes to getting into the community. And if you set that precedent, then, you know, you don't have to worry about it as much, at least.
And I got one last one here from Twitter, and then we'll jump back into our pre-written questions. This is again from Alexandra. What's the best way to advocate for community to those who don't understand community? So I'm kind of thinking that probably an internal question if you want to get that going within a client or within the company you work for.
I find that if your community is healthy, then the best way to advocate for it is to get somebody in there to have a look. The number of times that I've had people come to me and go, oh, God, there's some amazing people in that community. You guys are awesome. It's like, well, it actually has always been the case. You just haven't had a look before. So I think quite often people aren't on board with the concept, but they actually don't understand the reality. And until they do, then you're never going to be able to convince them.
I certainly think that's a matter of reporting. You know, in God we trust, all others bring data. So, you know, you should be gathering the wins and you know, and making sure that the people that need to know. So, you know, if it's a support win, you should let the support managers know, and, you know, up the chain of command and say, hey, I just want to let you know one of you guys did a supreme job taking care of a customer in the community. Here's the conversation. You can look at it here, and just letting everybody know. You know, if you want to let the internal teams know, create a newsletter that says this happened in the community last week, or last month, and just, you know, let everybody know what happened. You know, if you have some issues where you're struggling and you want somebody to help, say, you know, if you're interested, we could use some help in this area. If you're a knowledge expert, we would love to have you in the community, and just make sure that you're sharing those wins with anybody that'll listen.
I know Bruce says it all the time. You know, we try to do that a lot of DTC. Brian Fans always says it, but, you know, really simply, like what you're talking about, David, screenshot the awesome. Like what you've got, you know, save all of those conversations. And, you know, the way that what I've always come across it is just try to break down community to what its actual deepest levels is. Like, take away whether it's an online or an offline or anything like that, but you know, really get down to what just community is. Just people connecting And any business owner, any C-suite should be able to understand and get behind that idea, and then you just sort of build up from that foundation. And I think that's one of the best ways to go about it.
Well, so guys, how do you build? Want to ask another question: is how do you build credibility when jumping into a new community? White papers, blogs, etc. But any pro tips about building credibility?
Don't say anything for 2 weeks. Just join, watch, read, maybe say hello. I'm here, and then learn the ins and outs, understand their rituals, understand their rites of passage, and then once you feel really comfortable and you know kind of who the heroes and champions are, then enter the conversation in something that's appropriate, and just be yourself, be human.
I think trust really, or credibility really is built through trust and being consistent in your interactions. And so I think definitely being genuine and being able to follow up on what you are putting out there, and then just continuing to do that all the time.
For me, sorry, Rebecca, you go ahead.
I think what David said is really good, and I think also that being honest with is really important and helps you gain credibility. And then one thing that we mentioned earlier was about being fair. I think it's really important to be fair across the board and hold the rules for everybody, and that gives you street cred as well, I think.
And there's that old advice, build your reputation by helping others build theirs.
Yeah, I was just going to jump on that, actually. I think this just relates to how I am in real life. When I go to a party and then there's already a lot of people there, I don't just show up like, ta-da! I usually just like hang out with one person first, and then it becomes a group of 3, groups of 5, right? So I always like have a sideway conversation with someone that I can relate to, right? Have a relationship there, and then start posting. So then when I start joining the community and actually becoming more active in it, there's already friends to support me by liking, commenting on the post. Because I think the scariest part is when you set that first post and nobody replies to it. That's kind of like my biggest nightmare. And so having friends first before you do that definitely helps.
And I also just think that it comes down to transparency, right? Nobody doesn't like people because they don't know as much as they do, but everybody questions somebody that doesn't seem honest. And so I think that, you don't have to know as much as everybody else, but you just need to be honest about the fact that you don't, and you just need to ask questions. And I think that at the end of the day, people actually enjoy having the opportunity to explain and to talk about the subject. So asking questions is as endearing to some people as it is having all the answers.
I'm going to jump us ahead, because why not, to question number 5, which asks, what do you wish every new community professional knew?
I'd like to jump in on this one. I was thinking about this, actually. I think the first thing that I've run into in most companies is that they don't really know what community is. They don't know what online community is. And so, you might hear the talk, and in some cases you won't. They'll say, I don't know, we need a community manager. Somebody told me we needed a community manager. So I think educating the staff and the management and everybody about what community is essential. We have a whole week every year at Mind Candy, and we do a whole community. What is online community? What does this team do? And we spend a whole week with everybody in London, just showing them what we do every day, and it really pays off. We're lucky to be able to do that, because I've worked places where nobody really cared. I don't mean that they shoved us off in a corner or anything, but I've worked in some of those places too. But that nobody, they just thought, well, just get on with what you're doing, because we've got the really important stuff over here. But I think understanding that it's really important to educate everybody is something that I wish that I had known from the very beginning, although, we were figuring it all out back then. So.
I would say probably the most important lesson, or I wish you knew now, kind of a thing, is you're going to fail. It's going to happen. You're going to have that post that goes wrong. It's just going to happen. You just need to be prepared for it. Nobody's perfect. You're going to make a mistake. People are going to call you out on it. It may be a little thing. It may be a big thing, but it's going to happen. You just can't let it get to you, and maybe you're trying to promote something and the first time you do it doesn't work. You don't, just put it aside, try something new, keep plugging at it. Eventually you'll win. Just don't let it get you down, because everybody makes mistakes. God knows I've made some mistakes. If you Google, you can find them. So don't feel bad if you make a mistake your first time out. Don't feel bad if you make a community and it fails, because it's going to happen. It's hard getting communities to last, and we are just now getting to the age where we're getting science behind what we do. So just don't feel bad about failure. Just grow from it.
I want to jump us into this final question, because I think I'd love to just hear advice from everybody. It's a little bit of a mix. I'm going to change it up a little bit of mix of questions 6 and 7, but it has to do with community management as a career. I think as a career, community management has so many benefits, as well as it's such a rewarding job. And what I'd love to hear from everyone is, what's your top advice for a community manager, or so go to the next step, as well as, and maybe tell us what was really impactful in your career so far, as you've been moving ahead.
All right, so I'd say top advice for moving your career forward is to know your value. And so what I mean is that, let's say you've been up for 3-4 years, right? And you had the same title those 3-4 years. It might be time to start thinking about how you can advance. And that might be at the company you're at, it might be somewhere else, but it's time to have that conversation, because a lot of the time that conversation won't come to you. So it might mean more salary, it might mean a new title, it might mean new responsibilities you can add to your LinkedIn or your resume. But whatever it is, I think you yourself need to be pushing forward, because a lot of people who might have the decision to make over you might not understand how community should advance. So it's really on you in those cases to inform them and say, this is what I'm looking for, or ask for that raise, or ask for that new title. And if you can't get it there, you might need to go somewhere else. I don't think everyone wants to advance, and if you're happy, that's great. I think others might feel a responsibility to this profession, to this space, to move forward and to help us move forward. So if you're in a position to do that, where you can move up in your job, I definitely encourage you to do so. But I think it's definitely a personal ownership thing, way more than anyone's going to come to you and make it happen.
I think the three key things that I would suggest, one, to build a personal brand. I think having a personal brand in this space is quite important. People know who you are. I think the second thing is to accept mentorship. Patrick has been great for me in this regard. I think having somebody that does tell you that things don't just come to you because you're there, that you've earned this and that you need to take it. I think to listen to people like that is really important, because this is a career that in so many cases just happens to us. And I think that it's really hard to make that transition into thinking about, hey, no, actually, this isn't just happening. This is something that I'm creating for myself. And I think my third tip would be to find a niche, find an aspect of the role that is really special and you're passionate about. So for me, that's platforms and technology. For other people, it's advocacy of people, or whatever it is that you can do better than everybody else, and work on that, because this is such a new industry, and we are all forging new paths. And I think that the more we diversify, the more value there is in it for other people.
I agree with Sarah when it comes to looking for that kind of support system, and I'd say even outside of like a single mentor, what I really focused on was building almost like a personal advisory panel around you, a group of people that you can support and that they can help you when you reach challenges in your job and in your career. It's been a very powerful thing, and I feel like from just doing that, you end up building your personal brand a lot just by being really genuine and helping the people around you.
I agree with what Sarah just said. I think networking and helping other people has been like sort of the foundation for my career, and being generous with that help, because it'll come back to you in spades. Also, I think just basically reading reading is really important, and there's a lot to read out there, and there's a lot of opinions, but participating and doing is equally as important. So I think all three of those things, so you're knowledgeable about what your company is doing, and not just your part, but how does what you do support the rest of the company, and being really on top of that makes a big difference. I've had two pretty major things happen to me as a result of this career and this career happened to me as well. And that is, I spoke before the U.S. Senate in 2009, which was a pretty major deal. I didn't think it was any big deal, and then I was like up all night, thinking about it. And now I'm also working with the UK Parliament and on several Parliament boards, etc. And in my life, I never thought that would happen. I mean, I didn't like wake up and think, oh, someday I'm going to be on a Parliament board and speak before the Senate. So I think anything can happen. And also, as Sarah H. mentioned about the passion, I think that's just sort of fundamental to, you have to love and relentlessly be interested in what you're doing.
I have one thing really quick, and it's sort of echoing like what you were talking about there, Rebecca, about like doing those things. Make yourself feel uncomfortable a bit. Sherry and I have talked about this imposter syndrome quite a bit. When you're around people and you feel like, man, I don't know if I'm supposed to be in this room. Well, that's a good thing, because as you're moving forward, you're going to be surrounding yourself with people that are a lot smarter, people that have done it a lot. And so, like, sort of resting in that uncomfortableness is a good thing. The ability to continue feeling that means that you are moving forward and you're working in that, because when you look around and you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, it's probably time to find a new room.
That's really good. That's really good.
Wow, that was great, Dom. I don't even the smartest man. And if you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room. I think we'll end on that note. We're at the 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern mark. Thank you, everybody, so much. Thanks for your time. I had mentioned in the chat we could probably recap this and do about 20 different blog posts. And I know it was a little rapid fire, a little all over the place, but lots of great information. And as always, it's great to hang out with you guys on Friday. So. Sherry or Dom, what do we have going on next week?
Yeah, we don't know yet. We'll figure it out.
This was the last in the series of award panels. So
we planned like 10 in a row. What do you want from us?
Hey, I'll do an AMA. You guys can ask me anything.
All right.
The awkward personal questions. I was waiting for the awkward personal questions.
So since we have a bunch of viewers right now, remember, guys, at the beginning we said go to our website at mycmgr.com, click on participate, and please give us your ideas, and or if you want to hang out with us, and hopefully we'll whip out some topics again. So, all right, have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
See you guys.